Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. I'm back for another Question the Narrative video, and today's topic is, are these the bodies of dryads? I mentioned in one of my other recent videos that I actually really enjoy studying cryptids, and I don't make a whole lot of videos about them, but that's probably my favorite hobby and has been since I was a child. So I was watching the show Destination Truth. Again, I mentioned that in another video. I think it was last night. And an episode came up about something called the naree. The naree is a creature in Thailand that looks very similar to what we would call dryads or tree nymphs. And let's take a look at just what they are first. So, the naree is a tree in Buddhist mythology which bears fruit in the shape of young female creatures. The maidens grow attached by their head from the tree branches. This tree grows at the Himaphan, a mythical forest where the female fruits are enjoyed by the Gandharvas who cut the fruits and take them away. The naree is also mentioned in the Vesantara Jataka, in which Indra placed these trees around the grove where the Bodhisattva Vesantara meditated. And down here, it just tells us the folklore of the naree. According to Buddhist mythology, the god Indra created a pavilion as an abode for Vesantara, his wife, and two children to live. His wife went into the forest to collect fruits. She was, however, in danger of being attacked by hermits or yogis who lived in the forest. Although they had acquired special powers from their meditation, they had not conquered lust. Therefore, Indra created 12 of these special naree trees. The trees would bear fruit whenever she went out to collect food and distract the men. The fruits were all in the image of Indra's beautiful wife. And the men took these fruits home with them and we'll just say had their way with them. And it says that he did that to protect his wife. And so you might be thinking, all right, do I actually think that these things exist? Well, I think that it's very possible that they are some sort of nephilim, because we know that there were all sorts of hybrid creatures that were created, such as centaurs and satyrs and minotaurs and chimeras. So, no, it would not surprise me that there was some sort of plant hybrid created as well. And this basically is just on cryptids fandom, and it just tells us basically the same thing about the naree. Now, the naree bodies that I am showing you here, these are actually at a Buddhist monastery. And the monastery, the monks, they will not allow anyone to touch them or to take samples of them. So they can't be tested to see whether they are real or fake. And while that does hold everything back, at the same time, you can't blame the monks for not allowing that, because they're probably well aware of Western society and what we do with things that don't fit the narrative. The Smithsonian is our first example of that. And even when it comes to the DNA evidence of Bigfoot, do you think that if any of these mainstream universities would ever come back with some sort of DNA supporting that these things exist, that they would admit it? No, because they would have to change the entire narrative. But as I was looking at these on that show, I kept thinking to myself, they really remind me of what we know as dryads or tree nymphs in Greek and Roman mythology. And we know that we've talked about how many of the mythological stories around the world are the same. These creatures, they have different names. Sometimes the origin stories are slightly different, but it becomes clear after a while that they are talking about the same creatures. And I think that could be the case with the naree. So here it says a dryad is a tree nymph or tree spirit in Greek mythology. Dryads were originally considered the nymphs of oak trees specifically, but the term has evolved towards tree nymphs in general. Often their life force was connected to the tree in which they resided, and they were usually found in sacred groves of the gods. They were considered to be very shy creatures, except around the goddess Artemis, who was known to be a friend to most nymphs. So here we have a dryad as depicted often in Greek mythology. Here's another one from the new Percy Jackson series that's out. This is a dryad from that show. Now let's take a look at the different types of dryads. So there's the Daphne, and these were nymphs of the laurel trees. The Epimelides, the Meliades, Meliades or Epimelides were nymphs of apple and other fruit trees, and the protectors of sheep. The Greek word melas, from which their name derives, means both apple and sheep. Hesperides, the gardens of the golden apples, were regarded as this type of dryad. And this is the one in particular that I'm interested in because this is the one that I believe would be most similar to the naree pon, because the naree pon is also said to be a type of fruit, and the Epimelides are the nymphs of apple and other fruit trees. Now, dryads are often referred to as elementals or nature spirits. And again, I want to just reiterate that I do believe that they are more likely to be some sort of nephilim. But I just thought it would be interesting to read about this. It says Paracelsus, in his 16th century work, A Book on Nymphs, Sylphs, Pygmies, and Salamanders, and on the Other Spirits, Paracelsus identified mythological beings as belonging to one of the four elements. Part of the Philosophia Magna, this book was first printed in 1566 after Paracelsus's death. He wrote the book to describe the creatures that are outside the cognizance of the light of nature, how they are to be understood, what marvelous works God has created. He states that there is more bliss in describing these divine objects than in describing fencing, court etiquette, cavalry, and other worldly pursuits. The following is his archetypal being for each of the four elements. So we have the gnome, being of earth, the undine, being of water, sylph, being of air, salamander, the being of fire. The concept of elementals seems to have been conceived by Paracelsus in the 16th century, though he did not in fact use the term elemental or a German equivalent. He regarded them not so much as spirits, but as beings between creatures and spirits, generally being invisible to mankind but having physical and commonly humanoid bodies, as well as eating, sleeping, and wearing clothes like humans. And so I would add, this is just me interjecting here, that the uh, leprechauns, elves, many of these things often fall into the same category. My guinea pigs are out there having a party. Anyway, Paracelsus gave common names for the elemental types as well as correct names, which he seems to have considered somewhat more proper, Rechtsnamen. He also referred to them by purely German terms, which are roughly equivalent to water people, mountain people, and so on, using all the different forms interchangeably. His fundamental classification scheme on the first page of Tractatus 2 of the Book on Nymphs is based on where the elementals live, and he gives the following names. So we have nymph, undina, water, sylph, sylvestris, air, pygmy, nomis, earth, salamander, volcanus, fire. Of the names he used, nomis, undina, and sylph are all thought to have appeared first in Paracelsus's works, though undina is a fairly obvious Latin derivative from the word unda, meaning wave. In De Meteoris, he referred to the elementals collectively as sagani. He noted that undines are similar to humans in size, while sylphs are rougher, coarser, longer, and stronger. Gnomes are short, while salamanders are long, narrow, and lean. The elementals are said to be able to move through their own elements as human beings move through air. Gnomes, for example, can move through rocks, walls, and soil. Sylphs are the closest to humans in his conception because they move through air like we do, while in fire they burn, in water they drown, and in earth they get stuck. Paracelsus states that each one stays healthy in his particular chaos, as he terms it, but dies in the others. Reading this now, it actually is starting to remind me of something that someone had said. I have never read all of the Book of Enoch. I I own it. I never got around to reading the whole thing. I've read excerpts from it. But I did have a conversation with someone who said that the Book of Enoch, the way that they describe certain things and the elements in the Book of Enoch, it seems that there are some sort of spirits that control different elements. And you could think of creatures like this as controlling these things. So the reason that I was looking at these beings as being more Nephilim is because their bodies were found and they were, deceased, obviously. And I always think of we'll just say heavenly beings as being immortal. But here, if you go by what this says, it does say that each of these nature spirits does well in its own element, but that it could die in other elements. So that's very interesting. Paracelsus conceived human beings to be composed of three parts: an elemental body, a sidereal spirit, and an immortal divine soul. Elementals lacked this last part, the immortal soul. However, by marriage with a human being, the elemental and its offspring could gain a soul. That, yeah, I've never heard of that before, but certainly. Now here it's saying, I'm just skimming through, but I can see here it says the Rosicrucians claim to be able to see such elemental spirits. And I'm not saying that it's not true, but the Rosicrucians aren't known to be very good people. They're related to the Nephilim bloodline, so to speak, the dragon bloodline. So yeah, we have to be a little weary when it comes to them. But maybe that's why they're able to see these elemental spirits, because they are more in touch with that aspect of life. But anyway, I think that I shared everything that I wanted to. Let's just take a closer look at these, because I wanted to show you that while they couldn't look or test these things, they could only take pictures in the show I'm referring to. It does look like it started to decompose and that there are some sort of finger bones that are exposed through the skin right here. The faces look like pods, but this one especially you can really see. I have a close-up of that one. This one really kind of looks like an old man with the nose. Also looks like this is opened up here. They definitely do look like they're part plant though. So very, very neat. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to share this with you. I thought it would just be a fun question the narrative today, because I love to learn about stuff like this too. And I don't think that I talk about it enough, because I find it, yeah, even more fanciful. Let's say more fanciful. And very often it's much more hopeful than some of the other stuff that I look at, like great fires and being lied to and all this stuff. Sometimes it's nice to just delve into what these creatures might possibly be and if they could possibly be real. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one either here or over on Instagram. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. I also do have a YouTube membership, so if you want to check that out, you can go right ahead. And I hope you have a great day.